Hey, what's going on YouTube? Pathz here, and if you're a Sentinels fan, there's a lot of emotions that we're all going through. There's a lot going on within the last 24 hours. This is about the third time that I'm re-recording this video because the first time I recorded a video was after Sentinels lost versus Levianthan, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on where Sentinels went wrong and what they have to fix moving forward. And then I saw the tweet this morning that Syyko was fired as head coach, so I re-recorded the video a second time, and I went even longer, went to like 25 minutes, where I went into a deep analysis into the game and why I didn't think it was fair that Syyko got fired. And now I see this tweet from Kyedae talking more further into Tyson's health, his injury, and obviously how this is going to affect Sentinels moving forward. I mean, they have a game coming up this weekend. They have two games. They're going against Loud, and then 2 days after that, they're going against MIBR, right? So how does this, situation impact Sentinels moving forward, right, in terms of their future? Whenever I go to any of the talking points that I'm going to mention in this video, it is strictly going to be regarding esports, on the game performance. Nothing is going to be about attacking the players. There is a percentage of the Valorant community that has been very hateful towards the person. Do not hate on a person just because they lost a match, just because they underperformed. Is not that big of a deal, right? It's only a game. So some of the talking points that I got into in the past two recordings was talking about the Sentinels' last two games, right? The last two losses. I went into the improvements and what needs to be improved. I went to talking about death, right? I went to talking about TenZ's role on this team. I talked about Syyko and how I didn't think it was fair that he got released or fired, right? Before I get into those talking points, I just want to get into Kyedae's tweet that further elaborates on TenZ's health, and then I'm just going to give my pure, raw thoughts on the situation as a genuine Sentinels fan. Now, let's read the tweet. Empathy, noun. The ability to understand and share the feelings of other. Please be understanding. Tyson had to play. I'm sure if he had the choice, he would have sat out. He played with a joint infection and just tested positive with COVID this morning. He's only human. And I know I'm going to get attacked in the comments for this tweet. I do not care. I just feel constantly hopeless for the situation I'm in, and if I could, I would have hid the fact that I have cancer from everyone as well as himself so he could continue to focus fully. He has never once said he is the best. I get that with his popularity will come hate, but he's the most humble and kind-hearted person I know. I know saying this changes nothing, but again, please understand that both him and myself are only human. So, we knew that before the game against Levianthan, TenZ had an injury. He posted it on his Instagram story. Even I saw it. Basically, his left index finger was like slightly swollen. The best way I can compare it is any of you guys that played football or played basketball, when you get a finger jam, when the ball hits you like really hard on your finger, it gets kind of swollen at the joint. That's sort of how it looked like in terms of TenZ's injury. Now, pre-game, right, TenZ seemed kind of fine. The reason why I say this is because Sentinels, they always upload clips of the players warming up or, the players pre-game and all that stuff, and TenZ looked good, right? Especially the specific video where TenZ was doing the human benchmark, right? The reaction time, he was getting good numbers, right? He was getting 130 millisecond reaction time pre-game, right? So he looked like he was warming up. He looked like he was getting fine. I didn't think the finger was going to be a big deal, right? Because especially since it's his left index finger on the keyboard, right? I don't think it's going to be as hurtful as if it was his right index finger, which would be his righty hand, his aiming hand. Then I would think it would have a bigger of an impact. I guess from what Kyedae is saying, it seems that TenZ during the match, he progressively got more and more sick during the games, right? So at first it was just, oh man, I got a swollen finger, but progressively on match day, he felt more and more sick. Obviously you can see that when he came out on stage, he had a jacket on, he had a mask on, right? He didn't seem as energetic or overexpressive or anything like that. So it is very possible that symptoms of COVID were showing up progressively throughout the day and throughout the match, especially since Kyedae said that as soon as the match ended, he came home and he felt really sick. He was heating up, right? So it's very possible that TenZ was getting sick during the games. And obviously that can have an impact on your mental, your fogginess, your cognition, because we all went through 2020. You know what it's like to have COVID. It fucking sucks balls. So it's unfortunate, but I do still have a couple of questions, right, on what Sentinels as an organization are going to do. And this is where I'm going to get into the talking points that I spoke about in my previous recordings before all of this brand new news came out. Now, Rob Moore, CEO of Sentinels, he tweeted that Syyko is fired just a few hours after the loss versus Levianthan. Now, I don't understand that move at all, right? I don't understand why Rob Moore would fire the coach that built this super team, right? Syyko is the coach that brought in 2 world championship players on the roster, and he brought 2 of his guys with Def and Zekken, who he coached on XSET that placed 5th at Champions last year. And you can also give him credit that, he had a partial influence into signing Marv as the 6th man. And Marv obviously was in grand finals last year, right? Rob Moore fired a coach that built this team that is very capable of winning, very capable on being one of the top teams in the entire VCT, right? And what I find really confusing is Syyko built this team. He built a winning roster, a roster that's very capable of going very far into Masters, into Champions. And Rob Moore just all of a sudden, hey, we're going to blame it on you and we're going to fire you. Out of all the changes and all the improvements that Sentinels can make, Rob Moore thought firing the head coach was the solution. And that just absolutely mind boggles me. And what makes it even worse is when you see Kyedae's tweet is basically saying that TenZ was not really in it versus Levianthan. So it was technically a 4v5 because TenZ had to play because Marv was not in LA to sub in. So TenZ had to play. So it was essentially a 4v5, but for whatever reason, Syyko is the scapegoat for this. He's the one that gets fired. That makes absolutely no sense to me. And the next talking point I want to get into quickly is Sentinels losing their last 2 games. They lost both of their map picks in back-to-back weeks. So obviously versus Levianthan, they picked Split. They lost on Split. They have a 13 losing game streak on Split. The week before that, with NRG, they lost on Lotus. They got absolutely outcalled, outplayed on Lotus. Now, the positives that I do want to mention is Zekken. Zekken has shown great improvement since lock-in. This kid is truly getting better week by week. I was scared that when they played on Split and Zekken was on Raze, that Zekken might not match up to playing that Raze role on Split because it is so important to perform as Raze if you're playing on Split. But he stepped up to the challenge and he was clearly the best player for Sentinels yesterday. So shout out to Zekken for the massive improvements that he's been showing since lock-in. The other note that I want to mention is Def. So yesterday versus Levianthan, he showed that he improved individually as a fragger, but his IGLing, his mid-round calling, it is still mediocre because the team seemed very much like they were scrambling, like they were lost. And for the majority of the rounds that they did win yesterday, it was mainly hero plays. Mainly because of Zekken, right? Now, to go further into TenZ, he came into the game with an injury. But one thing that I do want to point is against Levianthan, he quote-unquote performed better than he did versus NRG. Now, I adore TenZ, but the mistakes that you saw from him yesterday were the same mistakes that were prevalent versus NRG. TenZ seems to overextend, over-aggress, and credits to Levianthan, they completely neutered TenZ when it came to him using the op. There were so many times that TenZ used an op on Ascent and he got 0 value from it. And then there was a round on Pearl where he used an op and he was completely retaking, and it was a 1v2. He had full util, And he decided to hold the bomb to defuse it instead of using util or instead of swap his op for a rifle. But you can see that the same mistakes TenZ made yesterday were the same mistakes he made last week. Now, I saw a lot of the fans defending TenZ when they played NRG in terms of saying, oh, TenZ didn't have flashes, he didn't have flashes, he needed flashes on Icebox. Well, against Levianthan, you saw Sentinels running double controller and double initiator, and they had flashes for each one of the maps yesterday. And what do you see? You still see a very poor performance from TenZ. Now, I get it. With context, now we can see that he was injured and he was getting progressively sick during the game. And then the last thing I want to mention is Def. For Def, I feel Sentinels need to either find a new IGL replacement or they need to strip partial IGL duties from Def. You know, his play calling has been mediocre to, again, the team seems lost and scrambling. Most of the rounds they've been winning are hero plays instead of proper executes and instead of smart mid-round calls. Now, if you look at the future matches, the Sentinel schedule is not going to be easy. This weekend, they have Loud. They have Loud, I believe, on Friday or Saturday. Then 2 days later, they have MIBR. And then the next match is versus Cloud9, who is currently the #1 NA team. So the schedule isn't going to be easy. And now we got news that Syyko is fired, TenZ is sick. Hopefully Marv has his visa, because the future of Sentinels is looking pretty dim right now. And if you're a fan like me, you're kind of worried on what Sentinels are going to do. How are they going to make the best of this situation? How is TenZ going to recover? How is this new coaching change with Kaplan? How is this going to affect or fix the mistakes that Sentinels have been making? And is Marv coming in? Does he finally have the visa? Is he going to sub in? In my personal opinion, I feel like TenZ should use this time to take an extended break. He should take the next 2 games off. He should not play in the Loud game. He should not play in the MIBR game. Sub in Marv, see what happens. Keep the same team, just sub in Marv, have TenZ take an extended break for his health. It's perfectly okay. I totally understand. And let's see where we go from there. Obviously, us fans, we have championship expectations of Sentinels because they have an amazing roster to work with, but only time will tell what will happen. I'll make another video after the Loud match. If we get that win, that is a statement win. I believe that would be a season-saving win, so fingers crossed. But until then, I hope you guys like, subscribe, turn on the post notifications for more videos. Let me know down in the comments below. Give me your thoughts. Give me your opinions on the Sentinel situation. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week.